Hello, and welcome back to the Living Internet Alliance podcast. This podcast was a Twitter space recorded on Wednesday, November 19th, and revolved around the topic of identity transformation and up-leveling your identity as a creator. Our next live Twitter space will be on Wednesday, November 26th at noon Central Time, and we will be doing live spaces every 2 weeks throughout the next few months as we lead up to the Creator Economy Convention happening in June in Vancouver in 2026. Until December 1st, there is a 50% off discount window for Black Friday for tickets for the convention for both the VIP tickets and the normal tickets. So if you're looking to go, if you think you want to go, now is the time to get that massive discount, and there will not be another discount window until the end of December. This will also be the lowest ticket price that we will have throughout the entire launch. For more updates on the event and to connect with like-minded creators also in the online space, you can join the free Living Internet Alliance Circle community. You can find that community on the website linked below at thelivinginternet.com, as well as opportunities to buy tickets. Now, without further ado, let's hop right into the episode. We hope you enjoy. Hello, Dan. Hello, Nick. I just invited you guys up to speak, so hopefully you got an invite.
Brother Nick, how we doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning indeed.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, it's pretty much evening,
getting
yeah.
up, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, usually I'm up much earlier. Today I felt very pulled to sleep in. I
Yeah.
was up watching a movie later last night and
Yeah.
just kind of worn down. You can probably hear it in my voice. I have a little bit of a blocked nose, low cold, which is okay.
Oh, no.
But yeah, just kind of worn down from the football season just ending, school still being in the mix, and then creator things heating up. So there's an identity transformation happening for me here, most definitely.
What are you in school for?
So I originally went 4 to 5 years ago to study economics and psychology, and I played football. Then I dropped out to pursue the creator game full time about 3 years ago, but I decided to go back this January to play one more year of football. And what came with that was finishing my degree, which I personally don't see almost any value in. Maybe there's a 1% chance that there is some value there, but I don't see value in getting a degree. But football season just ended Saturday, and I only have 3 weeks left of school. And to be honest, it'll make my parents happy if I graduate, when I graduate. So that's why I'm like committed to finishing. But I was thinking last night, like, if it was only up to me, like, I'd probably be cool, like, not finishing even with 3 weeks left. But I'll finish for their peace of mind.
Like a gift.
Exactly. Right.
Almost like giving a greetings card, right? We wouldn't do it for ourselves these days, but they love it.
Right. It is kind of similar.
Yeah, degree's a little bit more expensive.
That's a good mental model and frame around it, because it is kind of like a gift of gratitude back to them for everything that they've done for me, like being able to play this football season and them being able to watch it, now me graduating, like it's going to make them happy. So I appreciate
That's beautiful,
that
man. I'll be sure to not tell my parents this story because I never went to college.
And that's valid too.
My friend Jack just graduated. It was a lovely gift to his parents, and they'll just stare at me. Yeah, Dan, we'd love to meet Jack. Bring
Nice
Jack round for
Jesse.
dinner. Jack's a good influence on you.
Can't talk.
Let me invite him up as a speaker here.
I was just goading him because he can't respond.
I see we
But
got
yeah,
some other
Dan, how are
people
you
filing in here. We got Eric. Hello. What's up, Eric? We got that Web3 guy. Cool name. I'm very curious to know more about Web3, actually. And Faku, familiar face. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Good to see you all.
Morning, Maestro Jesse.
So, I just hopped on. Thanks Thanks for doing this again, Jack.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Like these have been really fun, and I feel like Twitter Spaces should be a bigger thing. I've actually joined a few in the past month or so, like that have been really interesting. Um, and these sometimes they can go to like 500, 1,000 people. So I guess you never know; they could blow up, especially if like we get a really big fish in here. Like if Dan Co joined, we'd probably have a ton of people in here. Um,
Yeah.
but this is kind of a niche topic anyways, and so it makes sense it's going to be a niche, smaller group, but that's also good too, because then the conversations and connections can be more intimate. So I'm excited to be here again today and do this with you guys.
Me too. Me too.
I
So,
suspect Dan would hop on for if we chose a topic that was like really on his mind. He'd probably be happy to come and speak.
yeah, I think so. I think timing just has to align for him, probably.
Yeah,
Be pretty sweet. That'd be fun.
I think it's
It's going to be,
possible. I've been on a space with him in the past, probably like nearly 2 years ago, but I remember that space. So he was in it. Talon was in it. Um, Brian Meyerhofer might have been in it. Dan, you might have been in it actually.
yeah.
And I think there had to be like over 500-600 people in the space. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty
I
cool.
remember a couple like that. Yeah. Actually, spaces were quite a big part of my strategy when I first arrived. I managed to, it was joining Dan's community. I remember, a lot of us in the community there were just trying to get to know each other. And I said, look, guys, why don't we do that on spaces rather than doing it as a closed thing? And then, people can drop in and maybe we each pick up a couple followers, whatever. And then as I'm kind of scheduling all of this and sorting it out, Dan's like, well, I'll come on. So we had, one of the first spaces I ever ran, we had at least a couple hundred in there. And then that kind of set a scene for, then I think Joey came on and Talon came on one. And I just found that I could kind of piggyback talking to these larger creators. Cause of course, we're kind of creating an environment where it's worth their while, right? We've got these couple hundred listeners at least. And who doesn't want to do that, right? Who doesn't want to come on one of these live spaces? I think if there's any kind of guarantee of a good listenership, it's such a powerful demonstration of someone's expertise because it's live, right?
Yep.
Very true.
It's very
anyone?
I want.
Dan.
These might be too early for Dan though, because I think it's like 7 a.m. by him or something, isn't it? And I know his mornings are blocked out or something.
Yeah. It would have to be later in the day.
Next week, we're actually
Right.
running one, I believe, next Wednesday at noon Central. So it would be like 10 a.m. Mountain time. So that could be possible. But Dan, you make an interesting segue here, I think, into the conversation that we intended to speak about identity and how important is identity in the creator economy. And the reason I think it's a powerful segue is in the beginning for me, it was much easier to write tweets and like connect with people in the DMs than speak on a space in front of like dozens or hundreds of people. That was definitely a test of my own self-confidence, my own personal identity. And if spaces have just been intimidating for me in the past, which is interesting, right? Because like now I don't feel that way, but back when I was starting 2 years ago, there was maybe some insecurity. I was like, am I even qualified to speak on any of this stuff? Who am I to talk with all these great speakers? And so maybe this segues well into this topic of identity. And I could pose a broader question to the group, and anybody who feels called can take it. It's, why is your self-image, why is your personal identity important in the creator game?
Yeah, there's a few things on my mind on the topic. I've been thinking about identity a fair bit lately. I was just thinking back on when I first read the book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz about 10 years ago. And Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon who, he realized that people who had their actual physical appearance altered, they often didn't necessarily see themselves as looking much different afterwards. And he was noticing these sort of strange things about self-image. And then later on, a large part of the point of psychocybernetics is he realizes how much power you have through visualization to actually change the outer result of things. So maybe your nose isn't going to change shape, but I don't know. Maybe your ability to swing a baseball bat, though, is something that just practicing swinging it is going to have a big effect. But he found that people who were able to visualize doing something like an order of magnitude better or differently than they had been doing it, they could actually switch into that mode. So psycho-cybernetics is a cool read on the topic of sort of the reprogramming of your self-image. But identity also, I've sort of been thinking, in a sense, identity really is just what they call ego. And it's, we have this thing that I think serves a purpose, and we develop an identity, but it can be too rigid at times, or it could be inaccurate, or it could be not really helping you in certain ways. And basically, it's how you think about yourself, right? Your self-image is a collection of concepts and ideas about yourself. And so I was thinking, we have a worldview, we have a collection of concepts about the whole world, and that includes ourselves because we're part of the world. So we have to think about how to navigate the world and how ourself relates to the world. So we have all these ideas about who we are. But it's not the ultimate reality, right? It's just sort of a lot of thoughts that are reflecting on different things. But let me see here. It's a tricky thing. Like I'm sitting here, am I an expert on the topic of identity? Well, I've studied different psychological modalities, and I've been interested in Carl Jung, for example. So I've thought quite a bit about the conscious mind and the unconscious mind and how they interact, and how the ego sort of forms its self-concepts. And then people tell you that the spiritual truth is that you should get rid of your ego. And maybe there is some kind of ultimate reality where, the ego is sort of just illusory anyways. So there's a larger reality at play. But there's other thinkers who say it's more about developing the ego. In fact, our friend Dan Coe, who we were just talking about, he's quite a proponent of both spiral dynamics and ego development theory. And he writes about it right near the beginning of The Art of Focus here, I realized. He says, "You don't get rid of the ego, you develop it to the point of being at one with reality. It is often for us to assume that we want to kill the ego or kill desire when that is simply part of what it desires. Instead, we want to transcend and include, that is, to use the ego to navigate the relative world we live in while grounded in the absolute." So that's an interesting kind of high-level perspective on, what what identity even is. So I think that in the creator economy, there's the topic of the niche, and finding out like what it is that you want to offer. That's kind of part of your identity. So then we also have the topic to bring up. I'd like to sort of pose this topic to bring up with you guys. We might think, okay, to build a brand, it's kind of about trying to sort of control how other people see you, in a sense. Well, we find that when we do that in our everyday life, a whole lot, which is part of our programming, right? We grow up and learn how to be part of the group and how to fit in, and so we're conditioned with all of these beliefs of our surroundings, and some of them are useful, and but where am I going with that? Oh, so to not be distracted by being concerned about how other people see you, it allows you to spend time with yourself in a completely different way. And so part of ego development theory talks about this sort of fluctuation between more collectivist modes of ego development, and it sort of goes back and forth as it spirals up to higher levels, where it's a more individualist level, it's a more collectivist level, and the individual, it always transcends group identity, but the individual is also always part of a collective, and including all that's around them. So sorry to get overly abstract right this early in the morning for those of you in my time zone, but yeah, my thoughts on this are partly this interesting tension point, especially for kind of newcomers to the creator space, where it's like, okay, how do I want to portray myself online? Well, I think a lot of the time the more important question really is just, who do I want to be? And not for the sake of how other people are going to see me, but for the sake of who I'm going to feel good about being. And so it's about building actually a friendship, in my mind, about building a friendship with myself and being able to actually sit and spend time with myself, and really ask, how do I open up space in between all these conditioned thoughts, the identity that's sort of just trying to live up to all these people's expectations and even my own expectations from the past, and spend time and I really ask, who do I really want to be? And I think that's going to play a bigger role for most of us in attracting the people through the internet than trying to really hyper-focus, even though it's still also useful to understand how to portray yourself online, how to write properly, and how to use color and imagery. But anyways, that wedges open a few topics. If anyone wanted to take something from there.
Jesse, I'd love to point out a couple of kind of things that stuck out to me as you were speaking there. First of all is that you did something that has turned out to be a hack for many, many creators, myself included, which is to come into, in this case, it's a space, right? But we could think about it in relation to a whole brand, is we come and we say, here's where I'm at. So when you said, I don't know how qualified I am to speak on this topic, right? I've read some Jung, I've thought about this stuff, I've looked into spiral dynamics, I've looked into ego development theory. So what you've done there is you've either qualified or disqualified yourself, actually, depending on the level of expertise of the listener, so that we give the audience the option of whether or not they want to listen and to what degree. Of course, someone with greater expertise than ourselves might still want to listen, and maybe they hop in and they say, oh, well, I've got a PhD in that stuff, and actually, I really like the way you're thinking about this. Have you considered?
Yeah.
Though, of course, someone who's never read Jung says, oh, well, this guy knows more than I do. To me, this guy sounds like an expert, right? Of course, we can do that to a whole brand as well, right? And the second kind of thread then is this plays so well into how we're seeing the creator economy develop now, in the kind of post-organic reach world that we live in here, unless we're speaking about the most mainstream of topics, certainly ego development theory is not going to get the attention of the algorithm, broadly speaking, unless we've already got a large audience to bring to it. Then by just showing up and saying, here's where I'm at, we've kind of abandoned we bring everyone's defenses down, right? One of the things that's come along with the development of social media algorithms, of course, is that the market is now so sophisticated, everyone is so tired of being sold to, that actually the only time they're going to listen, especially to someone who perhaps doesn't have massive social proof, is when that person shows up honestly, is when that person says, well, here's where I'm at and here are my thoughts, take them or leave them, right?
Dan, I love this segue right here because as Jesse's speaking about spiral dynamics and ego development and stuff, like personally, I've looked into it. I've watched the videos from actualized.org. I've read Dan's stuff on it, but I'm by no means an expert. And what I think is maybe even more valuable to the people listening is us speaking about something that we all do have expertise in, maybe through this model as a map, but our own personal experience, our own personal identity transformations. And Jesse, from an outside view, like you're such an interesting case because from an outside perspective, you've gone from a guy who, is kind of a wood carver, magician, like kind of a nomadic type of worker to somebody who is now taking the reins on organizing and running a very large scale event within the creator economy. So I'm curious for you, Jesse, what has that identity upgrade been like internally? How have you seen your own identity shift? And is there anything you've done intentionally to almost kind of reprogram yourself to let go of the old or integrate the old into the new work you're doing and the new capacity that you're holding?
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting. This has been a larger scale vision than I have previously attempted to bring into being, for sure. Let's see. There's some layers to this. So for me, I've always sort of thought I had a lot of potential in me in the way that I think all of you do. I've always sort of recognized, and I was sort of lucky, I think, that I was encouraged to think that I could pursue different sorts of things than are sort of common. And so, as a young kid, I was homeschooled for a lot of my upbringing, basically grade 1 to 7. And there was times when, as long as the kind of core curriculum was worked through, then I could spend half a day playing with a Lego Mindstorms kit that you learn a little bit of like basic programming. You're not really learning to code. You're sort of using like building block programming to make these robots, and you have all these sensors. You could make whatever the imagination can take you to. You could basically assemble and create robots of different sorts, and it could read. There's light sensors, and there's a bunch of servo motors, and it was just kind of like I was so allowed to explore that I think, and becoming a magician at age 10 to 15, it was a childhood career, right? Because sometimes my dad and I would go out on a weekend. Him and I started performing at the same time. His career was mostly in IT, working with computers, but he was always kind of interested in magic as well. And so we started performing together, and we'd go out on a weekend and charge, $300 to $600 for a magic show. And we would each take about $50 from that as personal savings for whatever, and then the rest would be this combined pot that we would use to go on trips. We would go to magic conventions, and we would buy more magic tricks and, or books or whatever. And it was an example for me of how you could have quite a bit of support financially from doing something that is a lot of fun and something you enjoy. And so that sort of was my default from age 10. I already had that understanding. So I didn't sort of have to deprogram this sense that the only way to go was making a wage and trading time for money. But then after high school, I went and started trading time for money, working jobs. And it was a real drag because I had that contrast. I knew that there was this sort of alternative way. And so I always sort of identified with a lot of entrepreneurs. I studied people and I paid attention to people who made things happen that are different. That just a word that goes around a lot these days is permissionless. People who just go ahead and say, okay, this doesn't exist yet. Let's just do it. And somehow, if you hold a vision long enough, oftentimes whatever challenges come around to block it, you work those out and you make your way toward the thing. And that's kind of brings up the psycho-cybernetics thing, because it's like you maintain a vision. Cybernetics basically is like goal. I think it means like to go towards or to steer. So there's the magic thing influencing my beliefs about what's possible, and like just as an experience, it was an embodied experience of having fun and making money as a kid. And so then, I don't know, throughout my 20s, I'm 30 now, and through my 20s, I don't know, there was a lot of challenges. My woodworking path was definitely, an accomplishment of getting wood shops in place and creating some works that I'm proud of. And, but it was nothing really big, right? I ran a few little things. I ran some little art gallery things. And, so for this idea to come along, for me, only about 18 months into my creator economy venture, 18 months ago, and really it was Dan Co. I talked about starting a podcast maybe 3 years ago for a while. But Dan got me to see the value of building a personal brand. And he got me to see past my judgments of what I perceived as the shallow aspects of it, or not even consciously, what just felt, it's sort of funny, sometimes the desire to be real and authentic and humble isn't even real or authentic or humble. But that's a whole topic of the paradox of I don't know how to put it, but, yeah, to build a brand, it's okay, so yeah, you're going to draw some attention to yourself and, make claims about yourself or your offer. But I'm 18 months into this thing. I've done some writing. Actually, speaking of, when we first got on this call, we were talking about the value of getting on these types of spaces and how you just sometimes end up on with maybe some bigger creators. And it was about this time last year, December, I was down in the Mojave Desert. I'm from Canada, but I was down on this desert trip, and I was out on a starry night. It was right before Christmas. And I saw that in the Discord community where the Cortex team and Dan Co. And all the Cortex users were interacting. There was a live call happening, and it was Dan and the team. It was Dan and the Cortex team. And I think that's about it. Like there might have been one or two other people. And so it was this kind of weird experience where I'd been absorbing all of his YouTube stuff for about 6 months. And then I'm standing out there under the starry night sky, like you can see the whole Milky Way out there in the middle of nowhere, and talking to the guy. And we're talking about some interesting, profound stuff about AI and about identity, like about the self, the nature of the self. Fascinating. And then not too long later, I got to meet up with him in Arizona. But I remember him later saying, like, "Oh, that was fun. We got to do more of those." So I agree with that. These are cool. It's hard to answer your question, Jack. It's like with this project of building an event for the creator economy, it's been largely about collaboration, for one thing. So it's utilized some strengths that I've developed with smaller scale projects that end up mostly being about leaning on other people's strengths effectively, working with people in a way that I guess. So it's challenged my identity because, for one thing, a lot of the people who I'm working with, and look at the speaker list, they're people who are way beyond me in their creator careers. So there is a little bit of that thought process that comes along that says, who am I to such and such? But then why would I say who am I to such and such when, well, all these speakers said, heck yeah, count me in. And all these people who I've partnered up with said, heck yeah, count me in. So it's just been strange to find myself working on something that feels really quite big, compared to anything else I've done, that's for sure. And a big challenge. So it's like, there's also the thoughts that come along that are like, am I really capable of, making this a success? And so those thoughts are challenging. And I don't know, sometimes you don't really know, what you're capable of until you begin something. So I've been getting a lot of feedback from the world and from other people saying, hey, like, seems like your strengths are being well utilized here, and this is a good path, and people are grateful. And so it's strange because it feels very natural for the most part, what I've been up to. I feel like I've been kind of preparing for it for a long time, but at the same time, all these things that have still been living with me in my head about my limits, my beliefs about my limits, and ways that I'm, not not capable of doing something at this scale. There's all kinds of thoughts and beliefs that contradict the vision. So that's what I mean about holding the vision. Like, there's going to be things that fly in and try to sort of destabilize it, especially if it's challenging your current identity. But there's something about holding the vision, like relentlessly and courageously, like beyond your current identity, that it sort of makes those things deflect and bounce off and dissolve, and you start to have space in between those limiting thoughts, where you see that they are just thoughts, and that there might be something much different that's true. But yeah, I'm still adapting, I guess, Jack. I'm still coming into this embodied feeling and understanding even of what's happening, what I'm up to with this project. But you, Nick, and Nathalie are here with us, and you guys are all part of organizing this event. And really, it's because when I spoke it into being, I was surrounded by a bunch of the right people and was able to find people who resonated with it. I mean, this is a particular case where it's a project that requires a big team. But yeah, it's a challenge to my identity, but at the same time, it's been happening very organically in a way that's actually been like supporting and encouraging identity shift that hasn't been entirely difficult. It's just been sort of a tension between old identity and what's happening, and maybe starting to have an inkling of who I might feel myself to be another year from now probably is even more different. So, a lot of us are going to be speaking in front of large crowds of people on a stage in front of large crowds, and that's an experience that could be kind of an identity shift as well. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, Jesse, you have me reflecting on this event for me and the identity shift that will happen. And I think this is the magic of this creator space, is because in a normal career, you kind of lock yourself into one identity for 40 years. You can go up in that career, right? You get promoted from normal employee or agent to a manager to a president to a principal to a C-suite, right? So your identity is slowly shifting in the normal old way. But in this new space, at least in my personal experience, my identity has shifted so fast in the past few years. And when I zoom out to this event and I think about speaking on stage, I think about DJing at a party, I think about what I'm going to be speaking about, which is not at all anything I was interested in or even aware of when I first entered this space. I think this is the power of the creator economy in general. Is 3 years ago when I joined this side of the internet, I was really just talking about health and broader psychology, broader philosophy, like very basic level. I was into running, I was into personal development, and that was about it. And then I started monetizing as a ghostwriter. If I would have told myself 3 years ago when I started becoming a ghostwriter, yeah, 3 years from now, you're going to be speaking at an event, DJing at the event, and you're going to be speaking about this metaphysical topic of energy and frequency, I wouldn't have even known what to say. I wouldn't have had the awareness to imagine that reality, and I wouldn't have had the energetic space within myself to actually hold that vision. And so, I mean, this could segue into a bunch of different topics around how the capacity for what you can create in this space, in your business, in your brand, is really limited to how much space you have in your nervous system, how much space you have energetically, and how willing you are to do the daily work around your identity to continuously expand. Because the truth that I've experienced is you will expand as much in this space as much as you expand and grow internally. It's all a reflection. It's all a mirror. That's why I think the creator economy is the best vehicle for self-actualization in the modern world that I can think of. So your reflections had me reflecting on just the rapid evolution of my own psychology and awareness in this space in the last 3 years. And I would love to hear, Nathalie and Nick, from you guys, how you've experienced your identity shift in this space and how you've gone about the process of shedding those previous identities and stepping into a new embodiment of your self-image, and how that's actually impacted your work, because it's all interconnected.
I love this topic. I hope you guys can hear me well. I love this topic so much. And okay, so you mentioned how even just now in the past few months or 3 years, your identity has shifted a lot, right? That you had to like expand the nervous system and even your energetic capacity to hold, to be able to hold a vision like this. And I mean, there's lots of things I want to touch on also, like that book, Psycho-Cybernetics. But I guess I'm gonna start a little bit where I started of myself. Like at this point, it's 5 years ago. Yeah, because I went from, like, just for a little context, like I never ever in a million years would have imagined myself being an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family that had very limited beliefs about what was possible. It was basically, well, you just go to school, get a job, retire, maybe do some fun things when you retire, but most likely you'll be in bad health. Just a very negative program, right? Because it's a program you run in your brain, and you're in what you believe is possible. And I never saw anyone else in my direct environment. Like, we grew up really isolated as well. And yeah, I never really saw what was possible outside of that. So I grew up with this really deep rooted feeling of like, I refuse to believe that this is all there is to life. But at the same time, I also didn't know how to get myself out of that. And now I'm going to touch a little bit on self-image, the way you talk about this. At the beginning, you guys talked about this book, Psycho-Cybernetics. But there's a book that, in my opinion, basically talks about the same thing. It's just in a way more feminine, energetic kind of way. I'd say like Psycho-Cybernetics is a very masculine energy. But if you're interested in like changing your self-concept, which, I mean, if you want to get into entrepreneurship, like working on your self-concept is a daily practice, I would say. But one of the books that really helped me personally was Louise Hay's book called You Can Heal Your Life. And I mean, the angles are a little bit different in these books, but they do have three things in common. Like, they both frame that the mind has direct influence on the outcomes in your life. I'd say like Psycho-Cybernetics, it talks more about like how the brain is like a mechanism and like holding an inner picture. Whereas Louise Hay talks more about, the metaphysical approach. It's about thoughts and beliefs and changing the mental patterns. But they both, talk about how the mind has a direct influence on the outcome. They also both talk about like the central role of your self-image. And when you look at this from like a more spiritual way, we can, use that, what's the word, like a metaphor of the mirror, right? Like life mirrors back to your internal state. So if your self-talk, your self-image is really poor, your life is probably not going to feel great. And like, I mean, I say probably, but I know this for a fact because after I burned out, after I graduated and had my first job lined up, and like I had done everything that that society basically tells you to do, right? Like I had 2 degrees, had my big girl job lined up even before I got out of college. I was in a relationship. I was socializing on the weekends. Like I was doing all the quote unquote right things, but I was still miserable because my self-talk, my self-image was really poor. And then when I got to the point where I was so burned out and I didn't want to be here on this planet, because at that point, like, I had struggled with depression for such a long time. I realized like something had to fundamentally change. And that is when I was like, okay, God, show me the way. Like, if you show me how to get out of this, like, I'm going to dedicate my life to helping other people do the same. And Louise Hay, that book, You Can Heal Your Life, is one of the first books that I really started studying, I would say, along with Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural. Because those all work on like the identity, right? Because having like a vision of the future, the person you want to become is one thing. But then, when you want to go to this on a deeper level, it's really about asking yourself these questions. Okay, like, how does that person show up? Like, what does that person actually do? And then that brings me to like the third point of overlap between those two books is both books or both methods use mental rehearsal and affirmations, which I thought was really interesting, because a lot of the times when you hear the word affirmations, especially more within like the New Age community, it has a lot of negative connotations and people kind of laugh it off and they're like, oh, well, you're not going to be just saying affirmations and then all of a sudden your reality changes overnight. Like, this is a process, especially if, your starting point is like a really low self-image. It's going to take you a long time to rewrite those old patterns. It's not going to happen by just saying some affirmations, like just 3 days or something. Like, at this point, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and also through journaling and listening to hypnosis tapes, and like, it's a conscious effort. And the more you do it, the clearer, I'd say, your vision of who you want to be becomes. Because like, now that I've been doing this for 4 years, I mean, yeah, I got a pretty clear image and path of where I'm going. But when I first started out, like, I had no idea what it was going to look like. All I knew was, okay, well, I've got a skill of writing and I've seen other people make money with it online, so I guess I'm going to do that. And then you kind of start shifting your identity to, okay, well, I'm a freelancer. And then you, by reaffirming that to yourself and then also taking action on it, that kind of builds your confidence. And then by doing those things and taking action and doing it for a while, like giving yourself long enough to find out if it's actually for you or not, like, you will learn, like, okay, I like this, I don't like this as much, but you kind of keep like iterating your path based on that. And same like with your affirmations or like your inner work on your identity, right? Like, you keep iterating, because there's always going to be challenges that come up, but you build more self-trust along the way. And by continuously reevaluating, like, okay, let's say for most people or speakers here, it's like, it's going to be a big step, right? To be on that stage and talking to people. And yeah, it's been really interesting to see what limiting beliefs come up. Also, what Jesse mentioned before, like, who am I to talk about this? And this is like, this question or this sentence, who am I to talk about or do this or do that? That in itself, like, it reveals like a shame block in a way, right? In the way that, okay, I didn't think I was going to go there, but when we look at the chakra system, right? So you've got your sacral chakra, the second one. That one is all about like creative expression, creativity, like who you are, what makes you unique. And like, when that one's balanced, like you feel safe to be yourself. It is safe to be you, but when it's unbalanced or when it's blocked, one of the easiest ways to tell is like you get questions or limiting beliefs coming up, like, who am I to do or say this, right? And I mean, these blocks or these limiting beliefs are always going to come up whenever you up level. But the more you do it, the more you reaffirm your new identity and take steps towards it, like you get so much inner trust that even when these doubts come up, you know you can navigate your way through it. And I also think it's just really important to keep in mind, like, things like imposter syndrome, right? Everyone struggles with this. But when you first start out, especially when I first started out, I thought everyone had everything figured out. I thought I was the only one who like didn't know what she was doing. And it wasn't until I started talking to other entrepreneurs that I was like, oh, okay, like everyone feels this way. And then when I went into ghostwriting, like I'd already done 2 years of copywriting at that point, went into ghostwriting and I started working with this successful sales coach. And like, that was, at least to my knowing, like the first time I was interacting with a millionaire, which at the time felt like such a huge deal, right? Because it was so far out of everything I'd ever known before. But then as I was talking to this person and getting to know him, I realized like, oh, he's got just as much limiting beliefs. And he's also feels like an imposter in like certain things that he does. So I think it's really important to just keep in mind that everyone feels it. Can feel like an imposter at times, but it's by doing and showing up that you build enough self-trust and basically reaffirm your new identity that you're consciously trying to create, right?
It's beautifully put, Natalie. Thank you for that. And I love when you share about the chakra system and these different things. I think it's super relevant. And I also think everybody here probably has somewhat of an understanding of it. So thank you for that. I wanted to actually give like a piece of actionable advice to anybody listening. And I see we got a lot of new people filing in here. So hello, Matt. Hello, Apollo. Hi, Fia. Good to see you again. We have If Akpana, and yeah, that's cool. Good to see you guys. So you joined at the perfect time because I wanted to shift the point of conversation right back at you guys. And Jesse, Natalie, and Nick and I are talking about how there's going to be an identity upgrade when we go on stage and we speak at this event. And so what I would like for you to all do now, and you can take a few minutes and do this, is go into your imagination, close your eyes, and imagine some outcome or event that you want to happen. So for me, Jesse, Natalie, and Nick, it's been, we want to be really embodied speaking at this event. And whatever this is for you, right? It might be a business goal. It might be a lifestyle goal. It might be a project you're working on. It might be an event that you host or facilitate, a community that you run, whatever it is. Imagine in your mind's eye what that would feel like for that to go incredibly well, right? You walk on the stage and you just know you're going to crush it. You know the topic so well. You go into the community call and you just know exactly what to say. You're completely confident in yourself. You present the offer to the right person. You hop on the sales call and you instantly close the sale, right? Because you just know you are embodied in that identity. And so long as you can stay connected to the imagined state that you desire and sit with that daily, right? Like, we're not going to do a whole guided meditation here. We could if we really want to, but sit with that imagined identity, sit with that imagined outcome, the successful outcome. Imagine what it feels like in your entire body, in your entire system, and in your mind. What are the thoughts that are going through your mind? And program yourself to live as that person now. So this is something Natalie and I have been talking about a lot here is, we want to go on that stage and be embodied, successful speakers. We want to give a great speech. But that will only happen to the degree that we can embody that right now in this moment, so that when we walk up on the stage, it's not some big thing. It's just an extension of who we are. So the actionable advice here is hold your imagined future vision in mind every day. Hold the self-image, the identity, the feeling, the frequency of that person in your system every day. And live as that person today. And I'm not the first one that said this. A lot of the manifestation, Joe Dispenza, metaphysical teachers, Neville Goddards of the world have said this. But that, in my experience, has been the most powerful way to upgrade my own personal identity. Is imagine yourself 1 or 2 levels higher than you currently are. Imagine the outcome. Feel it right now in this moment and live as that person in every moment of your day. And like Nathalie said, limiting beliefs come up. Imposter syndrome comes up. Am I really qualified to sign this client? Am I really qualified to speak on this space? Am I really qualified to lead this community? Whatever it is for you, when those beliefs come up, go back into the meditative practice, go back into yourself, go back into your journal and reconnect with that higher version of you, reconnect with that higher identity. And if you program yourself to do that over and over and over again, eventually you just become that person and it's a natural extension of you. And then everything's easy. And then you can think about the next higher level. So that's my ramble. That's my tangent on this topic. Would love to open it up for anybody if they have any thoughts or things to add on that or any other questions. But thank you for that, Nathalie. You prompted me into inspired rant. So thank you.
Love the inspired rants. There's another tip or like piece of advice I wanted to give to people, because you mentioned like whenever you feel those limiting beliefs come up, when you feel the fear, the anxiety, when you feel those things come up, you don't always have time to like do these super long meditations, and you don't need to, like, it doesn't need to be long, like just reconnecting for a couple of minutes, even taking a few deep breaths, like that in itself can be enough. But if you're someone like me who struggles a lot, or like especially in the past, like I feel like I got it under control now, but I used to get like really bad anxiety. Like my default mode was like the freeze response. Like I lived in chronic like high functioning freeze response for years. So talking in front of people, or even like if it was sending an email to my accountant, or getting on a call with a potential client, like those things would stress me out to the point where I would almost have a panic attack. And in those moments, it's really hard to reconnect with, the higher version or vision that you have of yourself. So what I like to do in those moments is energy tapping or EFT tapping. And why I like this specifically is because it kind of combines the best of both worlds, right? It combines like tapping on like energy meridians on your body. So that is like a somatic practice. It helps you regulate your nervous system. But at the same time, as you're tapping these meridians, you're also speaking affirmations. Like the first couple rounds, like you acknowledge, okay, what is it that I'm feeling in my body? And then once you've kind of tapped out like that initial high anxiety stress, then you can go into tapping in affirmations of where you want to go. And I found that combination of affirmations and the tapping at the same time really effective, because I mean, I talked about affirmations a little bit before, but one of the reasons a lot of people also think that affirmations don't work is because, let's say you're broke, but you're going to be saying affirmations like, I am so rich and abundant. Like your nervous system is going to be like, yeah, no, who you're trying to fool. Like, yeah, that's not true. That's not reality. And you might even get like a reaction to it, might make you feel like uncomfortable even saying it. And that's because like it doesn't feel safe in your nervous system. just saying the affirmation. But when you do the tapping, when you combine that, like, you first basically show yourself, you show your body that you are safe, that you're not in physical danger. And then once you realize, like, oh, okay, I'm safe, my nervous system is regulated, and then you start saying things like, okay, I'm abundant, all the things you want, that's when your nervous system starts associating those things with safety. And that's how you like regulate and expand your nervous system at the same time. Yeah, I also went on a bit of a rant here, but I thought I wanted to share this with people. And it's something like, because I used to work at a co-working space, and we'd have these meetings and stuff, and I would sometimes just run to the toilet and do the CFD tapping for a couple of minutes before I would go back in. I mean, I guess you could do the same thing with like visualizations and things, but when you deal with like real heavy stress and anxiety to the point where you just get dysregulated, I can highly recommend checking out the EFT tapping. If you want someone in particular, I really like Brad Yates on YouTube, or Tap with Brad. He has really good videos, like between like 5 and 15, 20 minutes on any topic that you can think of.
I love it. Thank you for that, Natalie. And I think you hit on a key point there too with affirmations. Like, if you're affirming something over yourself, but you don't actually feel it, it's not going to work. You can't sit there in a state of fear and write down, I make 10K months. I make 10K months. And maybe that will manifest for you and become true. But if it's done from the state of fear, you'll live in that state of fear even when you hit the 10K month. So like you said, the wiser way to do it, the better way to do it, is get your nervous system into a calm, embodied state, right? This is where breath work can be really powerful. Like you mentioned, EFT tapping. I haven't had experience with that, but I would love to learn more. Maybe you could share a link or something that we could all check out. And also another point here is all reality creation happens first in your imagination. I just tweeted it because the idea just came up. But if you can get your nervous system into a calm, embodied state first with meditation, with breath work, and then go in your imagination to your desired reality, if you then make the affirmations from that state where you have the mental image and the felt sense of that reality, your subconscious mind doesn't actually know that that's not real. To your subconscious mind, that is real. And if you can drill that into the subconscious mind by actually being in the embodied state, then it will become reality. I might have mentioned this quote before, so forgive me if I have, but it's from Harry Potter, actually. And Dumbledore drops one of the greatest manifestation quotes of all time. When Harry gets killed by Voldemort, he goes to the afterlife at the train station. Dumbledore says to him, he says, just because it's happening in your mind, Harry, doesn't mean it's not real. And so everything you go create, your business is first created in your mind. The creator economy convention was first thought of in Jesse's mind, right? There's a process that makes it become physical reality, but it will all first happen in your imagination. And every day, if you could go into your imagination and visualize and see and feel and affirm that ideal reality, and then bring that state into the day-to-day, it's only a matter of time before it happens. So this talk has gotten quite metaphysical, but I'm not surprised, to be honest, based on types of people we have in here. I see we have a few people that requested to be speakers, so I want to open the floor up to Akpana and Fia if you have any thoughts or ideas or questions you want to pose to the group.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's so random because I literally just stumbled across one of your tweets on my feed. It's the one that was talking about cycles, so like the 9-year cycles being completed and 2026 being year one. And so I saw that and I was like, wow, this is sort of speaking to what I've been intuitively sensing recently. So let me check out this person's page. And then I saw you had a live going on and I just jumped in. So if it's okay, I'd like to just maybe ask a question and see if the group has any ideas they can sort of share to help me better deal with what I'm struggling with at this point. So your tweet on the 9-year cycle triggered me to reflect on what was actually happening in my life in 2016. And it turns out that I was indeed closing a cycle. And some of the actions that led to my closing that cycle were literally just what you were talking about. The fact that I had begun to think about certain next steps for myself as an individual and also as a career professional at the time. And I had been making certain requests to sort of move on to that next thing, but it wasn't really happening. And at some point, I then made the decision that, you know what, some of these things that you're asking to move on to, what would it take to actually just start embodying and living those things right now in the current spaces and roles that you are? And at some point, that was the shift that I made in my mind. Like, okay, I'm just going to start living like where I currently am with what I'm currently doing. I'm already fulfilling the expectations and the requirements of that next step. And I started to do that. Basically, less than, I think, a month and a half after that, the feedback came that I was being moved on to something else. And this was literally at the end of 2016, going into 2017. So again, coming back to your tweet, 2017 then became my year one of an entire cycle that has sort of gotten me to where I am now. But now, at the end of 2025, I find myself again in that space where I'm anxious for the next thing. And in fact, I have started creating the next thing and I've started embodying that next thing. But the challenge is that this time it appears that it's far beyond me, because there's family involved now, there's other people involved now. So in my heart, I sort of feel like I know what I want and what I want to get to. But if I look at the considerations of the expectations that are on me, then it's clashing with everything else happening around me. So because of that, I can't always fully hold that image in my mind, because when I try to hold that image, it's just like, oh, but holding this image is going to cost you. It's going to cost you, certain things on the family end. It's going to cost you certain things on the geographic end and so on. So I think that's where the conflict for me is. And I guess the question I'm trying to ask to the group is, what do you do, when this image that you have in your heart, when this next thing that you sort of feel is indeed the next thing is pulling you in a certain direction, but you have all of these other responsibilities and things that are just holding you back?
So I think that, to answer your question, it's helpful to understand the mechanics of what you're talking about and how those types of changes happen. So once you put a vision into your mind, what's going on isn't actually anything mystical. It could be, but looking at it that way doesn't actually increase your control of the situation or your agency. What's going on is when you focus on something, your brain and your intelligence naturally starts to build evidence and gather different perspectives and find opportunities based on what you're paying attention to. So if you pay attention to the color yellow, you're going to start to notice how a bunch of things around you are yellow. If you pay attention to the color blue, you're going to start to notice the color blue. This also applies to different scenarios. So if Jesse pays attention, if you weren't here for this, Jesse's running a whole convention about the creator economy. But if Jesse pays attention to building a convention, his intelligence is going to automatically reinforce that and find new ways for him to take action toward it. So the reason I say that is let's say right now you're in position A and you want to be in position B. The first thing I would say is you don't have to put a lot of pressure on yourself to try to find the right answer. What you're doing is you're shifting your attention to what you want And then your intelligence, and you could say that this intelligence is like the creative force, and you could give it, bigger names. But your intelligence is going to show you the way forward. You're not going to teleport from where you are now to where you want to be. You're going to actually do a bunch of steps that you don't know yet. And because you don't know them yet, you're not going to have the same level of certainty that you would if you knew the path in a predefined way. And the second thing I would say is that your vision doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. So the idea that maybe there probably will have to be some sacrifice, but you don't necessarily have to know the nature of the sacrifice. Things could turn out a lot better than you expect. And it's not that you're not making any mistakes if you don't feel like a solid certainty about where you want to be, because you're not there yet. We don't want to lose touch with reality, because things are the way they are at the moment. They're not the way they're going to be, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But to clarify, what was the last thing you said again about families involved and a little bit more detail on the current situation?
So, I recently made the choice to step out of corporate and build a business of my own. My family is currently based somewhere in Europe, and there's a lot that is shifting and changing with regards to status, and also, like, I guess, legal permits to sort of remain in Europe, because we're originally African. But then I'm an entrepreneur, and the way that things are, I guess, set up here now is that for you to remain legally a resident, you require sponsorship, like corporate sponsorship. And we've had that because I was in corporate. But then in stepping away from corporate to build a business and really begin to grow that business, it meant that I had to give up that corporate sponsorship. And things are shifting so dramatically here that it's looking like, to maintain, your family status and your family residency and all of that, you're going to have to go back into corporate to get again that sponsorship. So I feel like everything that I've sort of done to get me to the point where I stepped away from corporate, I started to build a business, and I started to grow that business in a way that was actually, yielding very clear and obvious signs of success, even under like a year. I'm going to have to sort of give that up again to go back, because I want to.
Where are you from?
I'm originally Nigerian, but based in the Netherlands right now.
So I'm wondering if there's a way. So one angle of this is that you may not necessarily be able to visualize your way out of the technical dilemma of citizenship. Right? We might want to, I don't know a lot about the issue, but what I will know is something that you could maybe check into, or maybe there's a way to do this. In the US, you can become an employee of your own company. And is it possible, if you were to establish your business the right way, that maybe you could sponsor yourself, right? The business could be its own entity and your own business sponsors you. That's something that could maybe happen. But if not, it is a serious consideration. Like, if you go back to corporate, is there a way for your current business to partner with the corporate business? And it also sounds like when you say corporate, does your family own that, or is it a separate job?
It's a separate job, like going back to working full-time employment for someone else. And to your question about if I can be an employee of my own company, that is a possibility, but there are like time considerations within which you sort of grow the business to get to that point of qualification, you see. So yeah, it is indeed a dilemma. And what I've been struggling with is, like, it took me so much strength to get to the point where I pulled out, and then I started this business and I started to build, significant traction under it. And now I have to sort of, just end it to go back. Yeah. But then it's like,
Well,
okay,
here's
if you
the thing.
don't do it, what happens?
Yeah, if you do have to end it, then you could consider it temporary. You could don't drop the vision to have it happen just because there's a setback. Because if you go back now, you're way farther ahead than you were the last time you were there. But I see that Jack has his hand raised, so I'll pass to him. But what is there anything else you want to say first?
No.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, I first want to say thanks for asking the question and posing it and putting yourself out there so vulnerably and openly. It's really courageous, and I think a lot of us go through these similar dilemmas. I can't relate personally to the exact experience you're having, but I can see parallels in my own life of similar dilemmas. And I want to ask a question to you, and it might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it has a purpose. The question is, do you believe in God, or do you believe in the universe, or do you have some sort of faith that is a part of your life?
Yes, I do. So I'm Christian. So yeah, we do believe in God.
Beautiful. My advice would be ask for a sign. Ask for guidance, right? You don't know the way personally. None of us can know the way personally for you. And this is a non-linear leap. It's a leap into a new reality that you can't see clearly. And so what I would do in this situation is pray and ask for the eyes to see clearly, and ask for a sign from God, from the universe, to guide you on your path. And you might just start connecting dots. You might just see something in your environment. You might just get into the perfect conversation with the perfect person that gives you the right piece of advice, right? With these things that are so unknown, I think faith is so important. Faith that you can see the next evolution. There's a reason you can see it, but there's uncertainty. So where do you come back to? You come back to faith. You come back to your practice. You come back to, in humility, saying, I don't know the way. Show me the way. And if you ask the question, truly, if you ask the question, you'll get something, some sign, some synchronicity will appear to you. Some person will appear to you. So that's my take. I know it's not super practical advice, but in my experience, there's nothing more powerful than in humility asking for guidance from a higher intelligence.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And also come back to the faith that you've done it before in a similar way, right? 9 years ago, from that tweet you saw, 9 years ago, you ended a cycle. It was uncertain. You stepped into a new identity and you set yourself up for the next 9 years. Know that you've done it before. You can definitely do it again.
Yeah. I think sometimes we forget that. Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah, same for me.
Thank you, everyone. Jack, Nick.
Thank you.
Of course.
Cool. Well, Fia, I know you requested to speak, so I would love to turn it to you for any idea or question you might have. And if you're not on, that's also okay. We can begin to probably wrap this up here. This has been a super wide-ranging conversation, which has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. Does anybody have any final thoughts or questions or ideas that they want to throw out there for maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes here?
I actually wanted to ask Jesse if he could ask me about this topic, because he is very good at getting ideas out of me.
Okay, well, I'll start with what topic?
Identity transformation, Anything about the general topic of the space?
Okay.
Anything that stuck out in your mind? Anything that that your attention got drawn to? There's
Hmm.
Jack with the emojis.
This was so funny. I don't know why.
Nick, let me think for a moment. Well, maybe we can kind of frame it to who it's relevant to. So, as someone approaches the creator economy, online business space, entrepreneurship in general, and maybe hasn't had much experience with it and is, listening to a lot of the big voices out there, what do you think are the main identity related things that get in someone's way at the beginning?
Oh man. Well, do you want the 10 out of 10 direct answer to that, or should I mute, soften the answer?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, the direct answer to that is that the first identity struggle is that what's basically going on is there's a business goal that somebody has, and they believe they will solve that business goal by posting content on social media. And that's not exactly one-to-one. So I think it's almost a misidentification from a business perspective, unless you dramatically broaden the definition, which is fine, to have the sole identity of a creator without explicitly injecting business into that, and personal finance and personal financial goals and financial planning, and because those are all skills, they're not necessarily content methodology. You know what I mean?
Hey guys.
Oh, Fia.
Hi, sorry, my microphone wasn't working, so I kept trying to speak and it was just
Oh.
I was just not existing. So I'm glad to finally
It's okay.
have that working.
You appeared to respond to my response to Jesse's question.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just wanted to, because the question was kind of, I guess you asked about talking to people's specific identity problems and how that can affect different people in different ways, and I guess I just wanted to jump on and talk because when I joined, you were talking about imposter syndrome, and how do you feel like you can speak? And at first, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, I keep turning up to these X spaces and speaking, and what is going on? Because other people have all these followings and stuff. And then I remembered that I am a professional actor, and my entire lifespan has been kind of identity transformation and how to become a different person, and I get paid to do that. So if I can't jump onto an X space and talk about that, then I don't know what I can talk about. So I wanted to hark back to you talking about public speaking and how we've got the creator economy coming up, and there's going to be people speaking there, and they're going to be feeling like, oh, I'm coming on after Dan Coe, and I've got like hardly any followers compared to him. So I wanted to just share my experience of acting and auditions, because I've done probably, I'd say over 1,000 auditions over the past decade, which will be self-tapes and in-persons. And one of the things you kind of realize when you walk into an audition room and you've got a panel of people, and sometimes this is just a casting director, sometimes you walk into the room, there's 10 high-level execs, and they're all staring at you, and they want you to be good. They want you to walk into that room and be the best person for that part and make their jobs super easy. And I feel like that relates to public speaking in the sense that when you walk onto that stage, the perfect outcome
is that the people listening want you to change their life. They want what is about to come out of your mouths to be good and to be the best thing they've ever heard. And they are on your side. They are rooting for you. And I think that needs to be running through anyone's head when they're walking into any room, onto any stage, whether it's an in-person podcast or on a live, not in person, whether it's a meeting, whether it's an interview, is that the person on the other side of that desk wants you to be good. Because if you don't have that thought process, that will like start to affect how you present yourself, the words you say, how you say them. Like it's the same for content creation, and it's why clickbait is such a negative experience. Because when I click on a video that's like how you can be a millionaire in 5 days, the outcome I want is that 5 days pass and I'm a millionaire. So it can be quite jarring when that might not happen. Like when you read an article or you click on anything, the reader wants your content to be good. And that can feel like a lot of pressure when you're starting out, when you're writing things. You think to yourself, oh my God, this needs to be good. Everyone is expecting so much. So there's definitely things to navigate that for that. But yeah, if you keep telling yourself that everyone thinks you're a crap writer, or that you can't speak, or that nobody wants to read this will like inevitably just start seeping into your words and your scripts. And it's what you say about kind of visualization and meditation, how that relates in kind of the acting world is like, we can sometimes get these big roles, and like I'm not a murderer. I don't know what it's like to murder someone, thankfully. There's like tough themes like abuse or grief, and you still need to be able to kind of put yourself in that position. So we sometimes use a practice called emotional recall, which plainly is basically finding moments in your own life, finding times where similar emotions have happened, because you can feel certain emotions even if you're not in the same kind of situation. Find a motion that is similar and what that felt like, and start attaching that motion to what you're trying to do. Start visualizing yourself in that moment. And that's when you'll start to cry. If you're thinking about that time that you lost your favorite necklace that your dad bought you, you might start crying. And then what, you're filming a scene around like losing your father, and it kind of does the same thing. It's also what is basically method acting. And method acting is basically just living and being. And as much as the outside people kind of glorify method acting as this kind of tough and grueling thing, method acting is actually the easiest style of acting, because you're not acting, you're just being. And you're so fully consumed by the emotions that it becomes second nature to react how your character would. And I think that's very similar to visualizing and doing these affirmations and stuff, is you are just living and you're being, that it just becomes second nature. And that's, I guess, what identity transformation is essentially method acting. So if you are struggling with any of that, like I recommend just reading up on method acting, like how do people do method acting, and how do I bring that into my own practice? What does a successful writer act like? And then you might just start acting like one. Another acting thing is power poses. I'm not too hot on all the different types, so I definitely recommend like looking into it. But one of my favorite power poses is kind of standing like almost like in like a jumping jack star thing, with my arms out and my legs kind of like hip width apart, and just standing like that for like 10, 20, 30 seconds. And you start to feel powerful. Your body and your whole, everything comes and feels different. So playing around with how your body is can then start to affect how you think and how you feel. And then the final thing I wanted to say, and just a little bit of advice from someone who kind of has to do a lot of these, just, it's awful walking into these audition rooms sometimes, is I had an amazing director once say to me that before you go into any audition, so before you're walking into your interviews, into your podcasts, before you step onto that stage to do your public speaking, you have to say 3 things to yourself. The first one is, you are beautiful. The second is, you are loved. And the third one, which is the most important, you have to say, you have a secret. Now, you have to actually have a secret. In that moment, think of what your secret is. And for some reason, when you step onto that stage, you have like a little piece of something that isn't theirs, that you're hiding from them, that makes you feel a little bit powerful. You have a little bit of power over the situation. You're not so helpless and like floundering. And I don't know, I could read into the psychology of why it works, but it definitely works for me. So I'd highly recommend kind of adding that into your kind of pre-game if you ever feel like you're affected by performance anxiety, because it's something that actors suffer from all the time. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on the matter.
Yeah, that's really cool, Fia. I appreciate the especially the thoughts on the embodiment. Like using your body to reframe your state of consciousness is a pretty powerful tool. So I'm glad you brought that up. And also, you kind of made me think in regard to what Nick was saying about being on social media and being a creator. I think I had more on this than is coming to mind now, but just the thought of something like journaling or working on your art or whatever it is, without playing the social media game, and remembering to be in that state of play. You know, being a creator is a state of play, and actually just enjoying it, I think is a powerful reminder to like do the thing that actually it's what's going to create the substance that then might attract the right people on social media.
Yes, exactly. That's actually when she was talking, I think we had like almost the same idea come to mind, which is that it's very hard to create anything that people really want to see. Like Fia said, when you're on stage or you're on social media, which we could call a digital stage, people want you to be good. They want what they're looking at to be fantastic. They want to have a good time and they want to learn. And if you're really hung up on financial stress, well, creating content as a solution to that will lower the quality of the content and probably not alleviate the financial stress, although that is how it's marketed. So it's a little bit tricky in that case. And as an aside, I did a little bit of acting coaching with one of my friends who was an actor and did a short film. So I agree like with what most of Fia said about acting and identity. Acting is very interesting when it comes to how it describes identity, because it's actually almost like, and Fia, you could tell me if this is a good perception of it. It's almost like they have the exact spiritual framework correct of your mind, body, and emotion, and sort of taking a detached stance and then orchestrating them. But the acting space itself and the industry is quite toxic, and they advocate less holistic methods to enable you to take on those states of being.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I think that there's change now. You're starting to get kind of more access to counseling and stuff when you have like really hard scenes or hard situations to deal with, but there's no aftercare. So let's just say you're shooting on a series or a film for a long extended period of time. When you're done, you just go back to your house. And I remember I was doing a play in Dublin for Easter Rising, which is the anniversary of the kind of like civil war against Britain and Ireland, which is quite funny to be a British at that time because you just feel a bit like, sorry guys. But but in the play, my father had died and I had two children, and I was going to visit what turned out to be my half sibling that I didn't know anything about. And I was quite lonely at the time. And every single night I would step onto stage and my first line would be hello. And then I'd have to burst into tears, which if anyone has done any kind of acting at all, like that's just really hard. You're having to like put yourself into an emotional state before the show's even started, sat in your own kind of dressing room on your own, not laughing and joking with people, just kind of getting fully into it so that you can kind of fall apart after saying one word. And I would like go home and I would like start missing my children. I don't have children. I literally do not have children. I haven't had that experience. So I would like sit there alone in my apartment in a strange city, having kind of fully immersed myself into a role. And when it was done as well, like no one's calling me to check up if I'm okay. Like no one's kind of checking in. So it can be so toxic to kind of give yourself fully to an industry and not really have that kind of safety net. And I think that's an important thing as creators, because it is kind of the same thing. We're talking about personal brands all the time. We're talking about selling ourselves. Like it's the same as acting. You are selling yourself if you are creating a personal brand. And you need to have those kind of protections in place, and whether that's kind of communities you're building or kind of friends or family or fellow creators, it's really important to have people around you that are supporting you whilst you transform your identity. Because you know, when we start off creating, we might end up a different person than the person we started, and that's really hard to navigate, like losing friends, losing family members. And as much as you can rely on kind of followers and subscribers, at the end of the day, they are like paying to hear you speak. And it's nice to connect with people on like a peer-to-peer level. There's no kind of hierarchy there. And you can kind of speak openly without feeling like you're being taken advantage of or anything. So I think things like the creator economy are so important, is that people need to be connecting more on like a peer colleague level, as opposed to kind of this warped follower following kind of situation. Like there's too many creators now who are growing and growing, and it gives you kind of this messiah complex, and it's kind, I don't know, it's not very healthy. So I think that hopefully that answered your question on kind of the paradox or the juxtaposition of kind of giving yourself and leaning into all these holistic and embodied ways of connecting without actually having that true foundation to support that, which is what we should hopefully be trying with this creator economy.
It did answer my question. Yeah, there's actually acting actually is a much better gateway into that than people realize, because I was reading Sanford Meisner. You probably know, the acting coach, and he says people misunderstand acting a lot. I mean, a lot of acting coaches say this because people think they need to act like they're doing something, but they actually need to be doing something. And I believe he said acting is either the art of doing or the art of being, or something like that, but it's very one-to-one. But Jesse, I see you talking. I also thought of a perfect end quote for this one, so when you're ready, I have a fantastic...
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. I think that it's probably about time to... I mean, I'm in need of moving on with my day here. I'm not sure about Jack, and he's the host, but I am excited to keep doing these. We're doing another one, I believe, on November 26th, Wednesday, November 26th. That'll be at, if you're in the Central Time Zone, 10 noon. In my time zone, Pacific Time, it's 10 a.m. But we'll be posting about that. And thank you so much to each of you who showed up here today. And thank yourself. Thank yourself. Thank yourself for showing up for yourself, because you're doing work that not everyone's doing. You're spending time, valuable time. We're doing this work. So thanks for being here. It's been fun. And thanks, Jack. You've been a great host for all these so far. It's been an honor to have you creating this container for us. So much appreciated.
Okay.
But I'll let Nick give his closing quote, and Jack can wrap us up.
Yes. So I was reading a book by the very famous guy in mathematics computers, John von Neumann, who basically, guys in the 50s had all the foresight already about kind of how machines and the internet and technology were going to develop. And the book I'm reading by him is The Theory of Self-Replicating Automata. And the way he defines automata are self-replicating systems that can regenerate themselves and continue perpetuating. And he defines two types: humans, like natural systems, as natural automata, and machines as artificial automata. And he uses a similar distinction in another book he famously wrote, The Theory of Games and Economies. And he says that economies are natural and games are artificial. And I think the creator economy winds up being an apt name, because we want to be initiating the natural process of, let's say, resource accumulation, growing value, and all of those things, rather than have it be a game per se.
Interesting. We'll have to elaborate on that. Nick and I will probably have some deep talks
Yes.
before our next live call, so that'll be fun. See where it goes.
Epic. Well, I'll close us out here. Thank you guys as well for taking the time and hopping on this space. And thank you to everybody that was listening. And thank you to Akpana and Fia for stepping up to the stage and speaking and asking questions and sharing some super profound insights. So next week, like Jesse said, we have another space at noon U.S. Central Time. I'll be posting about that probably the day before. Also, I just want to make a little shout out to the Living Internet Alliance on Substack. So myself and Natalie and Jesse and Nick and all of the other speakers are going to be posting articles related to the creator economy on the Living Internet Alliance Substack. So if you see in our space here, I just pinned it as the most recent message, and I'll be releasing an article likely Friday or Saturday from this account. So definitely would recommend subscribing. You're going to get a ton of different insights from different speakers and creators of the convention, and hopefully it'll be super valuable for you. Other than that, you can also check out thelivinginternet.com for more information on the actual event that's happening next June in Vancouver. And you can join the free Circle community, which you can find. Jesse, where would the best place be to find that Circle community? I guess I can just link it.
Yeah, there is a specific link to let people into the free community. So I would just go to thelivinginternet.com and click on the community page. There's a link.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time and attention, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Living Internet Alliance podcast. For updates on all future episodes, please subscribe to the channel and share this episode far and wide to other creators who you think would resonate. As a reminder, there is a 50% off discount window for tickets for the Creator Economy Convention in Vancouver from June 5th to June 7th, happening through December 1st. So if you want to come to the convention, if you want to secure your ticket, this will be the lowest price that tickets will ever be available. So you can check out the link below at thelivinginternet.com to buy your tickets and also to join our free Circle community. With that, thank you for listening to this episode, and we will see you in the next one.